Welcome back, and now for the news in detail. We start from the US, which is threatened to hit 52 Iranian targets very fast and very hard if Tehran attacks any American citizens or assets. President Donald Trump said the shortlisted targets include very high-level sites important to Iran. He said the targets represent the 52 Americans who were held hostage in Tehran for 44 days in 1979. The president said Washington would use some of the brand new equipment on Iran without hesitation. He warned Tehran that the U.S. wants no more threats. Tensions have escalated since Friday when the U.S. killed Quds Force head Qasem Soleimani and top Iraqi paramilitary chief Abu Mehdi al-Mohandes in a drone attack. Earlier, the U.S.-led military coalition in Iraq said 2 rockets fell near its bases on Saturday night, but it said none of its soldiers were killed or wounded in the attack. Meanwhile, Qatari Foreign Minister Mohammed bin Abdul Rahman Al Thani has called for de-escalating tensions in the Gulf region. He met Iranian President Hassan Rouhani and his Iranian counterpart Jawad Zarif in Tehran. Al Thani said Qatar is worried over Soleimani's killing as no such action was taken in the past. He said Hormuz peace initiative proposed by Rouhani can become the focus of peace and regional security. Rouhani said under current circumstances, Iran expects friendly countries to explicitly condemn this murder by the US. Meanwhile, Germany's Foreign Minister Heiko Maas has called for direct talks with Iran to de-escalate tensions in the Middle East. In a related development, Iraqi Prime Minister Adel Abdul Mahdi has discussed the situation in Iraq and the region with Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. Mahdi's office says the two leaders discussed ways of mitigating the effects of recent events to avoid total escalation. Earlier, Saudi Arabia's King Salman spoke with Iraqi President Barham Saleh and stressed on the importance of diffusing the crisis. Saudi state media said King Salman told Saleh that Riyadh wants security and stability in Iraq. Meanwhile, NATO has suspended its operation in Iraq to train Iraqi army personnel amidst growing instability in the country after the US airstrikes. Moreover, Britain says it will escort UK-flagged ships through the Strait of Hormuz after the US killed Iranian military commander Qasem Soleimani. In a statement, Defense Secretary Ben Wallace said he ordered 2 naval vessels to prepare for escort duties. Now, Wallace said he spoke to the U.S. Secretary of Defense, Mr. Mark Esper, who urged all parties to work towards de-escalation. He alleged that during the last few months, U.S. forces in Iraq have been repeatedly attacked by Iran-backed forces. Wallace said under international law, Washington is entitled to defend itself against any threat to its citizens. Last year, British naval vessels escorted ships through the busy route after Iran seized a British-flagged tanker. Now, Washington's killing of Iranian commander Major General Qasem Soleimani has received mixed reactions from all around the world. People in the United States took to the streets against the raid and their president. Dozens of protesters gathered in Washington, D.C. to protest against the airstrike and U.S. troop deployments to the Middle East. Armed with a variety of chants and signs, the demonstrators began their day outside the White House. Actor and activist Jane Fonda joined the crowd, bringing her message of climate change awareness to the protest.
No more sanctions. Occupation is a crime.
So please understand, the Pentagon is the biggest institutional user of fossil fuel in the world.
Right.
That we can't anymore lose lives and kill people and ruin an environment because of oil and fossil fuels.
Moving on to Saudi Arabia, which has condemned the Turkish parliament's decision to deploy troops to Libya. In a statement, the Foreign Ministry said it is a violation of UN Security Council resolutions and undermines efforts to resolve the Libyan crisis. It said Turkish escalation constitutes a threat to regional security and interferes in the internal affairs of an Arab country. Earlier, Libya's eastern-based parliament voted unanimously against deals on security and maritime cooperation the Tripoli-based government signed with Ankara. The parliament also voted to cut relations with Turkey and refer to the head of the GNA, Faiz al-Sarraj, for prosecution on a charge of high treason. In Libya, 30 people have been killed in an airstrike on a military school in southern Tripoli by Khalifa Haftar's forces. Libya's UN-recognized government says 33 others were wounded in the raid and the death toll may rise. It confirmed that all 28 killed in the attack were army cadets. In a statement, Haftar's eastern forces said the attack was part of its operation to capture Tripoli. Earlier, Khalifa Haftar called for mobilization of forces and fight against what he described as the Turkish occupation of Libya. The UN says more than 1,000 people have been killed and at least 5,000 injured since the start of the operation. Meanwhile, Al-Qaeda-linked Al-Shahab fighters have stormed a military base in Kenya's Lamu County used by both the US and the Kenyan military. Government officials say it is unclear whether there have been any casualties, but the armed group claims it has killed several American and Kenyan troops. The group said it has now taken effective control of a part of the heavily fortified base. In Burkina Faso, 14 people, including several children, have died after a roadside bomb blew up their bus in northwestern Suru province. Security officials say the vehicle was carrying students back to their schools after the New Year break. Security officials say it's unclear who is behind the attack. Pakistan says the UN should fulfill its promise of granting the right of self-determination to the people of Indian-occupied Kashmir. Kashmiris around the world are observing the 71st anniversary of a UN resolution on a plebiscite in the occupied valley. In a statement, Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi said India's repression and state terrorism have denied Kashmiris their UN-mandated rights. He said for over 7 decades, human dignity of Kashmiris has been violated by New Delhi. Qureshi said India's unrestrained repression has reached unprecedented levels with an inhumane lockdown for over 150 days. He called on the international community to act in support of the fundamental freedoms and basic human rights of Kashmiris. Qureshi reaffirmed Pakistan's political, diplomatic and moral support to the valiant Kashmiris and in their just struggle. In the latest string of Islamophobic attacks, a mosque in the Czech Republic's city of Brno has been vandalized with graffiti threatening to kill Muslims. Police said they are investigating the incident. They said the perpetrator will face up to 1 year in prison if convicted. Local Muslims say they are taking the incident a serious indirect threat. In Spain, thousands of people have taken to the streets in Madrid to protest against acting Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez's deal with Catalan separatists. Sanchez, who is seeking Parliament's backing to form a government, pledged to resolve the Catalan dispute through dialogue. In return, separatist leaders assured him of their support. But the protesters dubbed the deal as a sellout. The country saw 2 inconclusive elections last year, coupled with Catalonia's ongoing drive for independence. In France, thousands of workers and Yellow Vest protesters marched in Paris against the government's planned pension reforms. They rejected the government scheme, saying it will require millions of people to work beyond the official retirement age of 62. Police fired tear gas to disperse the demonstrators. The month-long protests have crippled France's public transport. Prime Minister Edouard Philippe's office said it will restart talks with unions on the 7th of January. Welcome back now for more news in detail. China has replaced its top envoy to Hong Kong, Wang Zemin, after 6 months of anti-government protests in the city. He was director of Beijing's liaison office for the territory. In a statement, China's Ministry of Human Resources and Social Security said Wang has been replaced by Luo Huning. The liaison office serves as the platform for Beijing to project its influence in the city. The office has come under criticism for being isolated with the situation created by protests against a controversial extradition bill. The bill was withdrawn in September, but demonstrations continue and now demand complete democracy in the territory. In Cambodia, the death toll in the collapse of an under-construction building has risen to 36. Governor Ken Satha said the 7-story building collapsed in the coastal town of Kep, leaving 23 others injured. He said 3 of the bodies have not been pulled out yet. Satha said authorities have detained the building owners for questioning. Strong winds in southeast Australia are hampering efforts by firefighters to contain the raging bushfires. Now, officials say weather systems with powerful gusts threaten to further spread the blaze in New South Wales. Officials say military helicopters have been deployed to evacuate people trapped by flames in the state of Victoria. 4 people are still missing in the state. New South Wales Fire Commissioner Shane Fitzsimmons said hundreds of homes may have been razed. 146 fires are still burning across the state and about 65